Hey everybody, Sammy here with another episode of the Digital Marketing Therapy Podcast. And you know me, I love a good way to say thank you. There are so many ways to say thank you, and I feel like it's something that's not done enough. Just, a sign of appreciation, a way to say I appreciate the gift that you gave, or even just to be like, I know it's your birthday, or it's been a year since you gave us a gift and we still appreciate everything you've done. Whatever it is, I love me a good thank you. And I totally get that we are oftentimes strapped for time, strapped for, the ability to get it done. All the things that are on our to-do list that are running us in 50 million different directions. But I still believe a thank you is great. And there's nothing better than getting a handwritten card in the mail. A card that just says thank you, a card that, says I took time out of my day, or I, made the conscious effort to send this to you. So that's what we're going to talk about today, the power of the handwritten card in a surprising way that you might be able to automate it and still add that personal touch. So David Wachs is my guest today, and David's latest venture, Handwrytten, provides scalable robotic solutions that write your notes in pen. Used by businesses in all industries, Handwrytten changes the way brands and people connect. Prior to Handwrytten, David founded Sell It, a leading mobile marketing platform with clients including Abercrombie & Fitch, Walmart, and more. Sell It was sold in January of 2012. Both Handwrytten and Sell It were on Inc. magazine's Inc. 500 list of fastest growing companies. David is a speaker on marketing technology and has been featured in the Washington Post and Wall Street Journal, and is a contributor to Inc. magazine. We talk a lot about just the power of a handwritten note, the good old-fashioned joy of having that letter show up in your mailbox, the power of the open rate with that, right? And how exciting it is to get that in the mail, and just different ways that using technology can help you automate that experience. So I think you'll enjoy this episode. I hope that it sparks some fun ideas for you as you get going in your thank you campaigns and up-leveling them, and ways to maximize your teams and your volunteers, okay? But before we get into it, this episode is brought to you by our digital marketing therapy sessions. And I apologize, you're probably hearing a cat in the background right now. Anyway, our digital marketing therapy sessions are 30-minute sessions that you can book with me to go through whatever it is that you might need. Integrating your technology, taking a look at your website, giving you feedback, whatever it might be. And you can book your time with me at thefirstclick.net/office hours. I hope you'll take advantage of this so we can take a look at what's going on in your business and how we can keep your organization moving forward. But for now, let's get into the episode. You're listening to the Digital Marketing Therapy Podcast. I'm your host, Sammy Bedell-Mulhern, and each week I bring you tips from myself and other experts, as well as hot seats with small business owners and entrepreneurs to demystify digital marketing and get you on your way to generating more leads and growing your business. Hey everybody, I am so excited to have David Wachs here today from Handwrytten. David, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Sammy. It's truly a pleasure to be here.
I love saying thank you to folks. I don't think we say thank you enough. And so I'm just curious why is this kind of the foray that you wanted to go into, and why is saying thank you such an important part of what you want people to be doing?
Yeah, great question. I think thank yous are so underappreciated by businesses. Today, in today's day and age, whether you're selling a product or a service, thanks to the internet, there's infinite alternatives to what you're selling. I don't care if you're the most unique snowflake out there. There's still alternate products that can accomplish the same goal. And if you're a product selling on Amazon, somebody could search and find one of 10,000 other products that do the same thing, or on Alibaba or Etsy or whatever else. And if you're a service, people can find similar services on Yelp or G2 Crowd or whatever else. And because of that, when they decide to choose you, you need to be thankful for that. There needs to be, I think, there should be appreciation, full stop. And the reason I say full stop is there should be nothing, I believe that that's enough. You shouldn't ask for anything in return. Mm-hmm. It's not like, what's the ROI for thankfulness? I think that's a bad attitude, right? Like you should be thankful, full stop. Just That's it. You're thankful. Thank you for your business. I truly appreciate it. The ROI will come, but don't ask for the ROI. Just be a good person and be thankful for having the opportunity to serve that client and the fact that they chose you out of this infinite pool of options. At the same time, people, and this kind of gets more into why handwritten notes. When I started the company 7 years ago, I did a lot of stats gathering then, and I apologize that I haven't updated it too much, but I think the situation's only gotten worse. Back then, the average office worker was getting about 150 emails a day. They were spending about 24% of their time just managing their inbox. And then you add on text messages. And I used to be in the text messaging business, so I was part of the problem. But the average person receives thousands of text messages a month and hundreds of emails a day. And then now you add Twitter and Slack and Facebook and WeChat and Instagram, all these other electronic forms of communication. And it all just kind of becomes noise, and it seems insincere. Even the most personalized thank you, with no, as I'd say, MailChimp-esque quality, it just looks like you pounded out in your Gmail or whatever. Everybody knows those can be automated.
Right.
And so even the most personalized email does not have the same impact as what is perceived as unautomatable, although it is automatable, such as handwritten notes. So when you send somebody a handwritten note, what you're really doing is giving the gift of time and focus. You can't write a handwritten note while doing 100 other things. Mm-hmm. And it also takes you 5 minutes of time, starting from getting the stationery, getting the pen, crafting the note, putting it in an envelope, writing the address, sticking a stamp. That's easily a 5-minute effort, if not more. So people really, I think, appreciate that you've dedicated 5 minutes, which doesn't sound like a lot, but these days it is, of your undivided attention to thank somebody for their business. And I really think that's what people see past the paper, and they see into the time it took you to write it. And I think that's why it's so powerful.
Well, and to your point, the dedicated time to looking at it, because who doesn't love going to the mailbox and all of a sudden you see a card in there that's not junk mail, that's not a bill, that's not,
Yep.
And then you get the card and open it, and you're going to take the time to open it and look at it.
Absolutely. I call it dessert because, you go to the mailbox, you get your mail, and there's like 50,000 bills and junk mail pieces. And you're like, ooh, a handwritten note. And you keep that for the end, or at least I do. And then I filter through all the bills. And then I'm like, now it's time to sit down and open this handwritten note and figure out what they were sending me and all that. And since the average person only gets 2 or 3 of these a month now, they really stand out. Yeah. And it's a complete, what's old is new again, I like to say.
Yeah. Well, and what has the trend that has been going on for a while, to your point of, you say it more eloquently than I do. I always tell my clients, you're not special.
Yeah, you do exactly.
Great work, but they can shop wherever they want, or they could donate to whomever they want. It's that people are continuing to go back to the companies that make them feel special, make them feel engaged, and make them feel like they're, an insider or valued.
I actually love "you're not special." I'm going to totally steal that from you. Because it's true. You're not, there's, I like to say, Handwrytten, my company is, I believe is the largest in the world and the best in the world. That's not to say there aren't a million alternatives. Those alternatives are the few other handwriting companies out there, plus laser printed cards, plus sitting down and writing your own, plus having people, hiring a bunch of people to write the cards for you, a bank of interns or whatever. So regardless of the solution, there's always alternative products or ways to do it. And you're right. Nobody's special. We all can be replaced. And so really thanking people for choosing us and giving us the opportunity to prove our mettle, I think it's huge. We work with a lot of car dealerships, and they're always, oh, what's the ROI of this? What's the ROI of sending a thank you note? I'm thinking, you just bought a $75,000 car and you're worried about $3 and change to send a handwritten note,
right.
Well, how much ROI do you need? Let's say the ROI is 10, let's call it 1,000% or call it 10,000%. So you get $300 of value back. $300 on a $75,000 car, does that really move the needle for the dealership? So it's like, it shouldn't be about the ROI. It should be about doing the right thing.
Well, and I think with a lot of marketing, unfortunately, the ROI can be really hard to track. But I think about if I send a card, if I bought a car and I received a thank you card, handwritten thank you card from the salesperson, which is typically felt like a kind of smarmy, like we just have to get through this process. I need this car, so I'm just going to deal with this whole process that I don't like. If I actually got a handwritten card from somebody, I mean, obviously I'm not going to be buying a car probably right away next year, but I'm much more likely to refer that dealership to a friend of mine who might say, hey, we're thinking about buying a car. I really like your car. Where'd you get it? Like, heck yeah, I'm going to be much more likely to share that contact because that makes the whole experience much more personal to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And it allows you to stay top of mind in a much less invasive or salesy way. With these car dealerships, we say you should really reach out. By the way, I don't know if you can hear it, but there's all of a sudden a swarm of birds out my window. So I apologize if there's a lot of noise of birds.
It's all good. You'll hear dogs at some point.
Oh my gosh. So where was I? Oh yeah. So with these car dealers, we say, you should really consider sending notes 2 to 4 times a year. Mm-hmm. And those could be time for an oil change. It's a great opportunity to trade in your car, and then a birthday and a holiday, and just 4 touch points. When I receive a handwritten note, not only do I read it, but I keep it. So there's an opportunity there to stay on the desk or on the refrigerator or on the bookshelf of your customers. And then, maybe the next time in 4 to 6 years or whatever it is, they'll think, gee, I like dealing with that car dealership. They did me right. And they thought about me. Mm-hmm. I'll at least consider them. And then, another example, we have a client that's a piano tuner. So they're in your house once a year to tune your piano. You only need your piano tuned once a year. So that's it, once a year. And then after tuning your piano, they send their customer a handwritten note. When they're back in that house a year later, that handwritten note is still often standing on the top of the piano.
That's awesome.
So are you going to do that with an email? Are you going to print out an email and scotch tape it to your most prized, expensive possession? Are you going to take a screenshot of a text message? Are you going to save that slick marketing piece in Valpak or whatever? And no, but a handwritten note holds this unique place in people's hearts. They're willing to not only keep it, but put it on display in their fancy room, as I call it. When I was a kid, my parents wouldn't allow me in the room with the piano. So, but they put these notes on display in their fancy room. So it really does have some unique advantages there.
So let's talk about some do's and don'ts with thank you cards. Like what is, because I can imagine with nonprofits, like maybe you're sending it out right after they donate, and then maybe you're sending it out on their birthday, and then maybe you're sending another one out on their giving anniversary. So like they're all going to have different kind of stories behind them. So what are kind of some best practices when it comes to what you put in these cards that you send out?
Well, with nonprofits, and we work with a few like Team Rubicon and ACLU branches and stuff like that. But what we found that works is don't overdo it. So you don't want to send out handwritten notes every month. It should be after a big gift or an anniversary of a gift, or if you have a large pledging campaign. We've sent out handwritten notes with return envelopes in them for donations on occasion. I would say really with nonprofits, it's really that simple. Don't overdo it. And then also remember to do it for birthdays and for the holidays. Obviously, you want to stay top of mind those 2 times a year. So it's kind of not that different than a car dealership in that, if you can find 2 to 4 times a year to get in front of this client, that's enough. It's not going to be like your email campaign where you're blasting every week or every month.
Right.
The other things to consider are with handwritten, often if you're doing this manually, this comes naturally, but if you're automating, you have to think about this, keep it personal. So obviously address the person. So it's not dear donor, it should be dear Sam. If you can include some unique facts in there that are unique to that person. Like, we saw you donated last year during our Thanksgiving giving campaign. So at least that way there's little snippets of personality in there, or, thank you so much again for your donation of $50 last year. We'd love if you were to up it to 75 this year, whatever that is. Those are very, very easy to do with us, and, obviously manually as well. Those are really, really the things. Then I'd also recommend doing a hand addressed envelope too. So, because quite frankly, the envelope, as you know, if you get a handwritten envelope, it has like a nearly 100% open rate. The stats I've seen are three times greater open rate than printed mail. Mm-hmm. But everybody I know always opens handwritten envelopes. So just make sure you hand address that envelope too. We recommend handwriting in the return address, but that's really, that's personal preference.
So even that over like a sticker that you would put on there that has your logo on it, handwriting it.
We just think it's more personal. I mean, we have, unfortunately, with nonprofits, we do work with a number of nonprofits. We don't have a ton of great stats with any of our clients because we're pulled out of the loop. It's not like an email campaign with a click tracking. So They get the results and they say, yep, it's working, keep going. And they don't like to share a lot of their secret sauce with us. But we've seen a lot of our clients do, a lot of our nonprofits do hand return address envelopes. We've seen others that laser print the return address on the envelope. Sometimes if it just says the name of the person that wrote the note or was quote unquote sender of the note and not the nonprofit name, you might get a little bit of a higher open rate just because like, oh, who is Sammy? Let me open up this piece of mail from her. So there's that. We have other clients that, and again, this is worth doing A/B testing. Should it be a generic thank you card or should it be a personalized one with a logo and a photo and all that stuff? That's worth A/B testing. And then with Team Rubicon, we also have pieces of stationery. So it's not really they do cards with images of the work they've done and stuff like that. But then they also have other cards that are just, from the desk of the director of charitable donations or whatever, that's printed on the card. So it looks like a little piece of stationery. So when somebody receives that, it seems extremely personal because it's not coming from this box of thank you cards. It's coming from the personal stationery of so-and-so. So we do a lot of that too.
Oh, that's so interesting. And so, because one of the questions that I also had was, typically when you give a gift, the nonprofit will send you like your traditional tax receipt that's on 8.5 by 11. And so I would also think that maybe sending something in a card size versus an 8.5 by 11, even if it's handwritten piece of paper, like just the change in size of the envelope would probably make an impact on, I'll just throw this in my box of things I need to deal with at tax time versus I'm going to open it because there's something different in here.
Yeah, we've never done that. I guess it would be possible. It would be a little bit of logistical work as we'd have to, marry up the right tax document to the right handwritten note, but it's certainly doable. But yeah, you also want to make sure, those tax documents usually say important tax document enclosed, and then those immediately go in the tax document drawer, So if you were to do that, you'd probably want to print that on the envelope at least, so it would say tax document enclosed plus a special thank you. Or what we have, I believe we've done is we write in the note, your tax document will be arriving shortly. So it's a second touch point. You get the handwritten note in one, and then you get the tax document in another. So, that's certainly an option.
Yeah. So I feel like I can hear nonprofits or just any company saying like, there's no way that I can start to handwrite all of these cards. Like this is going to take an entire person. And then how are we going to manage tracking? Like who's coming in and now it's this person's birthday and now we have to send them this anniversary gift. Like logistically, it feels a little overwhelming. So, I know you mentioned earlier, there's lots of different ways to kind of get these cards out, but what are some best practices you've seen from the automating side of of getting these cards out?
Yeah, honestly, automating works better than manual because when it becomes a manual task, it becomes a chore and then it doesn't get done. We work, and I know this isn't a nonprofit example, but we work with a perfume brand, and we handle their handwritten notes for their online sales. So if you're to buy this cologne online, you'll get a handwritten note from us. If you go into a department store and buy the cologne, you're supposed to get a handwritten note from the department store clerk that sold you, but they're too busy merchandising and dealing with customers and, closing up the cash register to ever get around to it. So automating does a much, much better job of ensuring compliance to ensure that everybody gets it. So I would recommend automating it across the board. We handwritten, just to quickly get into what we do, we write handwritten notes for brands, for nonprofits, but we use robots to do it. So here in our facility, we currently have about 115 robots. We're actually on path to add 100 more this year. Each robot holds a real pen. They're built by us, and they write in the handwriting style of your choice. And currently we have 25 available styles, but then people come up with their own styles too, which are private just to them. And then we can replicate signatures and all the rest. So that's kind of the technology behind the actual writing. But then we have technology for the automation. We tie into Salesforce, HubSpot, and Shopify, which probably isn't useful for your listeners. But then we also tie in to SyncSpider, Zapier, Integromat, and Integrately, which are kind of, it used to just be Zapier. And then all of a sudden, Zapier has all these competitors. But these are kind of integration middleware platforms that allow you to very easily automate things that otherwise would be difficult to automate. And if I didn't work for Handwrytten, I would love to work for Zapier because it's just the coolest thing. We use it a ton around here, but we tie into a lot of the donation platforms. So let me pull up a list of those, and this is all through Zapier. But we tie into those. The one we don't do is Blackbaud because they don't seem to tie into anybody right now. But we tie into Give and Rev and platforms like that, so that when somebody gives a donation, that person is automatically sent a handwritten note, or on the anniversary of their donation, to your point, or when they've registered with your nonprofit but never donated. There's a lot of points when we can automate the sending of those notes, and we can do everything that we mentioned in the best practices. Handwrite the envelope, put a real stamp on it, handwrite the note, insert dynamic mail merge fields, for lack of a better term, personalize the name. All of that is fully automatable. And worst case scenario, if you don't want to do that, you can always upload spreadsheets to our system. We have a lot of clients that do that too.
So to your point that you said earlier, you could run a handwritten campaign that says like, hey, if anybody gave up to $75, ask them to increase their gift to $150. If anybody gave between, 76 and 150, ask them to up their gift to $300.
Exactly. And that would be very easy to do. Especially. And then, Zapier is one tool. We have a full API if people are willing to invest their time and programmer money to integrate. So if they want a full direct integration, they can do that. And then there's another thing called Integromat, which is kind of like Zapier, but it allows the one use case that it's really good at that Zapier isn't is uploading to like an FTP site for all your listeners that know what that is. And I'm sorry if I'm starting to speak, a different language, but sometimes it's easy just to dump a file to a FTP site and then assume it's handled. And Integromat makes integrating an FTP site with handwritten dumb simple too. And we do that for a lot of clients. They don't even have to do it. So with a lot of these car dealers, for example, they'll dump their data to a FTP site, and we've already set up all the flows to send out automated notes for them, or birthday reminders, or whatever the case may be. We just say, okay, we'll just do it for you as because we want your business type deal.
Well, and I love this so much because so basically like the organizations can come to you and say, okay, here's the 3 different or whatever. Here's the use cases where we want these to go out automatically. Here's the copy that we're going to give you for each of those cards. And then they pick out what the card or the stationery that they want, or do they give you the stock cards so that you can print on them? Like, how does that work so that they can get kind of that branding on point?
Yeah, great question. There's 2 ways to do customized cards in our system. So number 1 is you can just log into Handwrytten, and you can go to the customizable cards category and you can customize a flat 5x7 card. So it's really like a little piece of stationery, and you can put your logo on the back or a photo of your team on the back, or, a project, whatever. And then on the front, you just have your logo at the top, and then we write below that. So it looks like a little 5x7 stationery. That's what anybody can do. If you wanted to do like a bulk order with us or do prepay in bulk, so, you're kind of making a quote unquote larger commitment, although we do this for people as low as 500 cards. So it's really not that big of a commitment. Mm-hmm. We will design we'll work with you to print your custom design. And that can either be folded or flat, full bleed. Handwrytten now we have our own full digital print shop here. So it's no different than ordering your cards from Printing or, whoever. We have our own digital print shop here, and we print cards in-house, cut them, trim them to size their full bleed, and then score them. And so from One Stop Shop, you get a really nice thick piece of stationery with your logo, folded, flat, landscape, portrait, whatever, and then we write it inside of that.
And I think the thing that I like about this so much, like, I don't know how the other companies have done this, but like what intrigued me the most was the fact that you have these robots that are using a real pen.
Yes.
Because I have gotten cards and letters in the mail that are meant to look handwritten, but you can clearly tell that they're just printed. And while I appreciate the effort, it just kind of gets lost on you. You're just like, okay, well, like they tried.
There's one, and I don't want to mention names, but on the back of their card, it's laser printed. It's supposed to look handwritten. The handwriting looks like brush script, which is what your, Windows 95 computer used to do. If you dusted that off, it was just laser printed. It completely didn't look real. And then I think the worst part about it is on the back of the card, instead of just saying, so-and-so brand card, like whatever, or your company name on the back or whatever, it has a receipt on it. So it says from so-and-so to so-and-so, gift card included. I'm like, that looks so insincere. Mm-hmm. I'm amazed this company's still around, and they're actually a huge company. But yeah, to your point, I've seen the exact same thing. And people often ask us, why do you write in pen? Why not couldn't you just laser print it? And the laser printing is getting pretty good.
You can still tell the difference.
You can still tell the toner lays on the page different than a pen follows the bumps and crannies of the paper. And then also sometimes we do write on people's if we're working with a high-end luxury brand, they might send us embossed stock or stock that's foiled or something, and we can't even feed that through a laser printer. So there are different use cases. And then finally, the smudge test. And you'd be surprised how many people do this, but whether you're a car dealer, a nonprofit, or a travel group or whatever, and you send somebody a handwritten note, they're like, wow, did they really send it? And then they'll lick their finger and try to smudge the ink. And they're surprised that it does smudge, and then they'll, so we've had our clients' customers call them in tears recently, because I think it's COVID related.
That personal touch.
Yeah, it is a furniture brand, and they said they had customers calling in tears, thank you for the handwritten note. I said, well, I think that's COVID related, because people are so isolated now. Anytime you reach out to be personal, it's even more impactful.
Well, and we work with organizations in a multi-channel approach, right? Like you don't ever yes, I'm a huge fan of email marketing and email automation. I think that it's a fantastic tool. And to your point, that's something you're sending them weekly, you're sending them monthly, whatever, but you're in their business all the time. But even now more than ever, the impact of the personal phone calls and the handwritten notes make all the difference in the world. Just going back to the original thing that you talked about, like, how do we make people feel special? And that's never going to go away. That's never going to change. I often think about, you hear these stories of these couples that were writing letters back and forth during World War II because, that was the only way of communication. And it always just seems so romantic and nostalgic. And like that feeling is still there.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. The other thing that we've kind of teamed up, or not really teamed up, but we're kind of mutual fanboys of each other, I'd say. It's a company called Bonjoro, which is video email. Yeah. And the reason is because it accomplishes not the same thing, but similar things in that it creates a unscalable user experience. So when I send somebody a video mail through Bonjoro or any other platform, and for those of your listeners that don't know what that is, it's like an email, but it includes a video clip inside of it. And that video clip is from the sender to you. And so what happens in that is quote unquote unautomatable, because it's from me taking time out to talk directly to you. Mm-hmm. So I feel like all these things, video email, text messages, bulk mail, handwritten notes, they should all be considered part of your overall outreach strategy. I couldn't agree with you more. I don't think handwritten notes really replace anything other than maybe an occasional junk mail piece or something, but they don't really replace anything at all.
What are some kind of unique ways that you've seen people use handwritten cards as kind of a touch point?
We have one client. They're not in the nonprofit space, but it doesn't really matter. They've been sending their customers or could be donors face masks, and then with those, we fulfill that for them. It just fits in an envelope, and then with that face mask is a handwritten note. We have a lot of win-back use cases. So, if we haven't heard from you, if you haven't donated in a while, here's a a handwritten note basically asking, now's the time, we need your money more than ever. So we've seen stuff like that. We have a pet care company, it's like pet product company. They send birthday hats, like little cardboard birthday hats with elastic on them, on your pet's birthday, so that, you can take a photo of your pet wearing this birthday hat. And of course, the birthday hat's totally branded with the pet brand name. But what it does is it's a nice little, hey, happy birthday card to your pet. And then the people Instagram those pictures and tweet them, and it creates a little viral effect.
That's so smart.
And we have a lot of clients doing the viral effect, but you'd be surprised. Just sending people a handwritten note sometimes these days generates a viral effect. We work with a company called Vinyl, VNYL. They're a record subscription box. And people, like, when you get your record subscription, you get a whole bunch of every time you get your record subscription, you get a handwritten note. People post these to Instagram all the time. For inbox, and again, I don't know if, maybe if you're sending out care packages or something like that. Actually, we worked with a veterans group, and they received a handwritten note from a veteran saying what a great job they're doing. And they asked us to duplicate it to send it out to all the troops.
Oh, wow.
So it was the largest duplication job. Usually what we'll do is we'll take what you write and a handwriting style, and we'll put what you write in that handwriting style. But in this case, we copied exactly the note and rewrote it every time. And it looked crazy good. And then we sent out 10,000 of them to troops so they could each have a copy of this impactful note, which was interesting.
So it was like taking the testimonial and mass producing it. So it was still a very authentic message, but they got it in the handwriting of the person who sent it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, it was really interesting. Those are kind of the big ones in the nonprofit space, I'd say.
So it's funny that you brought up Vinyl. I'm sure it's probably the same company, but we had Paul Chambers on a couple of episodes ago, who's the co-founder of SubTo, which is the subscription trade association. And he mentioned Vinyl for some of the unique things that they're doing to kind of add VIP and add-on sales. So go back and listen to that if you want to hear a little bit more about their use case and how they are creating kind of some fun stuff within their membership program. So that's cool that they're also then sending a separate card.
Yeah. It's crazy because the cards so every day we receive their order, we overnight the cards to them, they get inserted in the boxes. To me, it seems like a logistical nightmare, but they've been able to do it.
Yeah.
And their founder, Nick Alt, is just a great guy. So he was one of our early clients and has stuck with us for about 5 years, I believe.
Yeah. And I think it all goes back to, we talk with nonprofits about treating their donors as customers, not donors.
Yeah.
And making them feel special, like you would want to feel special if you bought a pair of shoes or you bought, like you said, the perfume or what have you. Because that's a way I think you can really set yourself apart and keep people coming back for more. So, we've always encouraged people to write handwritten cards. But until now, I hadn't found a company that I felt was going to help automate in a way like what you guys are doing. So I think it's a super cool way to innovate. And then also just to be a disruptor. So Vinyl is trying to be a disruptor and do things a little bit differently. So how can you think about ways that you can do things like this to show up in people's lives when they need it and have that ROI come back to you, even in ways you probably can't even measure?
Well, I have I completely agree. I have one use case that isn't really nonprofit, but maybe it'll turn somebody's screws and they'll figure, get your mind moving. We have a client, they are speaking of subscription box, they're a snack subscription box for offices. So they'll send your office, we get it here, and it turns out to be an insurmountable amount of granola and jerky and all these nutritious snacks. And what happened is occasionally they'll screw up a box or forget to send you a box, I think is the more common case. So then they send a box to you with a handwritten note that says, "We're so sorry, for our mistake." They own their mistake, which I think is a huge thing people don't do. Huge thing. I was just on a podcast talking about owning, the power of screwing up. And so they own their mistake and they said, "Here's your box. We've thrown in additional snacks to make up for it. We hope you continue to use us." And what they found is the user or the customers that have a bad experience, but was followed up with a handwritten note and an apology box and all that, have a higher lifetime value than customers they never screwed up with. So what did they do? They then turn around and screw up with everybody to raise the lifetime value of everybody.
On purpose.
That's
incredible.
Yeah, it's one of the craziest things, but brilliant. So everybody has this win back or this, fall on the sword experience where they, that raises their overall loyalty and lifetime value and average revenue per customer. So, it's possible to do something like that in nonprofits as well, whether you promise them a piece of swag and it comes up late, or you send them the wrong swag, or you misaddress a note or whatever it is. And then you follow up with an apology and an over apology. And, there's opportunities anywhere.
There's a couple of lessons here that I love so much. And one being, we tend to not do things that are outside our box because we're afraid of it not being perfect. And so this is just a great example of people don't expect perfect. It's all in the remedy. Like you go to a restaurant and they bring you the wrong food. It's like your tip is not dependent on, did they screw up? Your tip is, how did that server then handle that situation?
Absolutely.
And the other example to that is, like, you look at somebody like Amazon, like they must screw up thousands of times a day because of their sheer volume. But similarly, because that experience is it's going to be so easy to get that return. They're going to refund my money. Like, what's going to happen. How they're going to take care of you when they ultimately do screw up, that you still are going to be dedicated to what they do and how and buy from them.
Yep. Yeah. I came up with the whole framework on screwing up. It's like over apologize, remedy the issue, and come up with a plan for never having it happen again.
Right.
but the owning it and over apologizing is the most important part. I've been in situations, my wife and I were starting a dog product. She was starting a dog product company and I was helping her, and we had a PR firm involved, and they screwed up, and their response, because I guess, I'm aging myself here, but was kind of this millennial snowflake response of, no, it's because you didn't provide us the data, or you did, it was pushback as opposed to owning the mistake that they clearly made. And it ruined that relationship. Had they just said, we screwed this up, we're so sorry, we're going to make it right by doing X, Y, and Z, that would have solved it and probably had the effect that the snack box had.
Yeah.
Our house just got flooded. We had what I thought was a routine plumbing thing go on, and we left the house. We left the plumber with the babysitter and came home, and our house was flooded.
Oh my God!
I was livid, but the company, they immediately resolved the problem and saved themselves from getting a 1-star Yelp review. I in that case, I can't say I'm going to be a customer of theirs for life, but I didn't give them a 1-star Yelp review, which is also, you don't want to. You want to mitigate any responses that the donor or the customer might have as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think just to kind of, round this out and get your final thoughts, I feel like, to your point, the way that we treat our customers when they don't ask for it, when we've screwed up, when we are just, wanting to fill them in on what's going on as opposed to asking for something all the time. Like those little touch points, whether they be a card or something else, really just kind of express, this is who we are. This is how we treat people. This is how we care about the people that are in our network. So continue to care about us. I think all of those things make an impact.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you would like to share about kind of the impact of handwritten cards or different ways that people have used them?
Well, we work with I don't think it's technically a nonprofit, but it's highly sensitive. It's a end of care for pets. So, you get your dog euthanized in your house by this company. They're a pretty big company. They got vets all over the nation. And then they send handwritten note follow-up, thanking for the opportunity to assist you in that difficult time. And so, the trust we had to build with this company, so they trust us to know that we're not going to screw this up, because this is really sensitive stuff.
Absolutely.
That's been an interesting process. But other use cases for nonprofits, I mean, one thing that we do or can do is we can work with some of and I'm sure your nonprofits already do it, but work with some of the database providers to find mailing addresses that meet certain criteria. And then we have other database providers that can tell us if those, the probability of those residences buying new homes or having life events or whatever, we can then target those with outbound handwritten note campaigns. We typically don't do a lot of outbound handwritten note campaigns, though, simply because it's expensive.
Yeah.
And, if you're selling like diamond rings, maybe there's an ROI on it. But if you're doing something else, it can be quite costly. But, just so we will work with you or, the client or whatever to try to figure out ways to target this, hone this, so that we're not wasting their money and, putting a bad taste in their mouth for it. But there's been some of that too. But I think the overarching use case for what we do is really donor engagement, once they're a donor, not donor acquisition.
No, I think I could see doing that if it was like you were right by a school and you were trying to target, families for maybe an after school program or something. And so a handwritten note might make that trust feel a little bit more like, oh, let's check this out. But yes, I agree with you. I think for donor retention, it could be way more impactful. Well, I loved a lot of the my wheels are spinning with some of the things that you brought up, nonprofit or not. I think there's so many different ways that this can be utilized. If people want to find out more about Handwrytten and how they could potentially connect with you, how do they do that?
Yeah, please reach out to us at, you can contact me. I'm David at Handwrytten. It's HANDWRYTTEN.com. So Handwrytten with a Y. Or, we're at Handwrytten on Twitter. We're on LinkedIn, Facebook, all the typical places. I recommend, just so that you know for yourself, you see for yourself how real this all looks. Visit us, handwrytten.com, and go to the business tab at the top and order a sample kit. If we also have a page, if you go to market resources, a page for nonprofits, and you can kind of read up there too. We are going to be adding some case studies shortly for nonprofits, focusing on some university clients that I didn't even touch on here, but university clients and Team Rubicon and that type of thing. And then if you want to give it a try, just sign up and use discount code podcast, and you'll get $5, which is enough to send a friend or loved one a handwritten note and see if you can trick them.
I love that. I'm going to try that. I'm going to try to trick somebody and see what they think. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. And we will link up all of those into the show notes at thefirstclick.net/podcast. So you can check all of those resources out. David, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. This has been a true pleasure.
A big thank you again to David Wachs for joining me on this episode. I am so fascinated by the robots that he has at his facility and can't wait to go check them out sometime. You can get access to the show notes for this episode and the coupon code that he put that he mentioned at thefirstclick.net/podcast. But for now, I hope you'll rate and review wherever you listen, and I will see you in the next one.